Over a Cuppa with Dilhan Fernando. What makes a great chef? Celebrity chefs and other matters. Tea-inspired chat with Black Hat chef Bernd Uber.
Bernd Uber, welcome to the first in the series of Over a Cuppa. Bernd, we are all friends and it's such a privilege to catch up. May I ask you first, what's in your cup of tea?
Oh, well, I mean, what a crazy question really to ask. It's in my opinion, the best tea grown in the world. And of course, it has to be Dilmah. There's nothing else in this house, or even with my neighbors, there's nothing better than Dilmah. So it's a beautiful cup of perfectly brewed run butter, one of my favorites.
You were always excellent with the brews, Bernd. So I'm going to start by asking something that you're definitely going to need all the antioxidants and the theanines in that cup of tea for. What makes a chef a great chef? Is it passion? Is it commitment? Is it skill, personality, or is it all of the above or more?
Well, it's all of the above and more. I think you could write pages what makes a good chef. And a good chef in my younger days, 60 years ago, was somebody completely different. In those days, a good chef had to be able to cook, and he might have to do some food orders and make some menus. But now it is so more involved being a good chef. And I think the first thing you possibly need to look at is hopefully some calling. I mean, if you want to be in the religious field, you have a calling. And I believe when you're in cooking too, the calling usually comes pretty early, that you make up your mind, now I want to be a cook or a chef in due course. And but all the components that you mentioned are extremely valuable and are a must. And it's getting more difficult now to be a good chef than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Bernd, you used to always tell me that there's a difference between a cook and a chef. We spent, almost 7 years intermittently on the road in the Real High Tea Challenge. So I know what the difference is, but perhaps you might enlighten our viewers with your version.
Well, yes, it's heavily discussed and argued about the difference between a cook and a chef. I still consider myself a cook, and always been a cook, proud to be a cook. And I've worked as a chef, but nowadays, of course, everybody puts on a white uniform or is in the kitchen preparing food, calls himself or herself a chef. And that's fine. I think times are changing, and even I have to change with times, under protest sometimes, but you know, that's the way it goes. A cook is a person who prepares food. And when you become in charge of a station in the kitchen, you become a chef de partie. And that's your first grading as a chef. But you're still a cook. And then the second highest would be then the sous chef, the second chef. Chef just means chief, person in charge. It doesn't have anything to do with cooking, really. When you work in Europe in an office, the boss in the office is your chef. If you work in a factory, your supervisor is a chef, but he's not a cook or she's not a cook. So we have used the abbreviation of chef de cuisine, chief or boss of the kitchen. We just say chef now, and that's but you know, we should be proud being a cook, and eventually we should aim and strive to become a chef, meaning being in charge of a kitchen or part of a kitchen. But it's a term. Well, when the oldies go, this argument or this discussion that we have will never come up again once our generation or my generation disappears and goes up into the big kitchen in the sky. So yeah, it's a good discussion point, but yeah, the main thing is do it with passion.
Thank you, Bernd. I always get fantastic answers from you in terms of philosophy and the humility and the commitment that goes with cooking. Without upsetting those fantastic TV chefs out there who are themselves highly accomplished, of course, I want to ask you, in terms of what a chef should aspire to, we have so many people coming into our schools telling us that their role model is X, Y, and Z. as typically one of the television chefs that you see on TV so commonly. Do you think that should be an aspiration, or do you think it should be about nutrition, about entertainment? Because this whole televising of the kitchen has changed things significantly, for the better in some cases, for the worse in some cases. What is your perspective on how that has impacted the vocation, and what a student should be aspiring to when they start in the culinary field?
Well, the term celebrity chef, yeah, it doesn't go down too well with me. I have taught a lot of celebrity chefs from Australia in my younger days, and I'm proud what they have achieved. But when I had one of the enormous pleasures of my life being at the Empower School last year and addressing some of the current course at that stage, I was discussing and commenting on something similar. I think it's very, very important that it doesn't matter where you end up at the end of the course, end of the 3, 4, 5 years. You should use your maximum potential. And if that is working in the local cafe, in the village or in the township where they are, that is fantastic. If they would work in the hospital and prepare food for the patients, which is very, very important, because all the patients is looking forward to is a nice presented meal that's on top of it hopefully nutritious. Very important, especially if one is in the hospital for a longer period of time. Nutrition becomes more and more important. If you work in a restaurant, or if you work in a little food stall somewhere, in wherever it might be, in this case Sri Lanka, in the main street or in the village, it doesn't matter. We don't need all to have to be cooks or chefs in a 5-star hotel. That is not important. As long as you find your niche, do that well, and as I always say, try to do it with passion. And that is more important than being a celebrity chef, because from that, it's a steady job. It gives you satisfaction. You get happy customers. Celebrity chefs, I wouldn't want to be one. I wouldn't want to be an entertainer. The pressures are enormous, and the fall that you might experience along the way can be very, very harmful and very hurtful. So try to be the best cook, the best chef you can be. Set yourself a goal. When you have reached that goal, you might be able to extend it and set a new goal for yourself in due course and try to reach that, but live up to your potential, wherever that might be. That is the important thing. And if it's not a 5-star hotel, it does not matter at all. Passion and loving a job, then you have happy customers. That is the important thing.
Bernd, that's fantastic advice, and we will be playing it to all our students in future batches, but it also puts into perspective some of the issues we've seen around these chefs who've been chasing awards and put themselves under tremendous pressure. You've seen a few highly publicized suicides amongst chefs. Is there anything that you have to comment on that?
That is very sad. I mean, we've talked about the renowned Michelin star that we have, the rating, and a lot of these guys are under enormous pressure. You and I have seen them around the world, and we heard about them, and they hand their stars back. They don't want to be controlled by that anymore, because it's enormous pressure. And then it takes some of the fun and the enjoyment away from cooking, because being constantly under pressure is not healthy for oneself, for the family, for the relationship. So having what I call, a normal job is much better, much healthier than being under the pressure of these awards. Now, aiming for awards, going into competition is vital, especially more so in Sri Lanka than in other similar countries than here in Australia, for instance. Because if you don't go into competitions, if you don't participate and further your knowledge and put your knowledge and your skill on the table to be judged, the overseas jobs will be hard to come by. So I admire all these young chefs and cooks in Sri Lanka for many years, for nearly 20 years, that they go into all these competitions that they can enter, to be able to get their ticket out of their country, to days gone by, to Dubai, to Melbourne, to Singapore, to any of the other countries where there's employment. That is great. That is very important for their future development. But then I address them at the same breath. I say, well, it's important that you travel or at least go interstate, travel around your country and overseas if you can. But the most important thing is, and I can speak from experience, that you need to go back to your country where you come from and enrich your country with the knowledge that you have obtained in other places, other countries, other cultures. Then you have achieved your aim. Then you can settle down in peace, and all your hard work will bear fruit in due course, because you'll teach and pass on what you have learned in the previous years and decades.
Bernd, you used to, during our the Real High Tea Challenge, and as we sat together as yourself as presiding judge, myself as tea judge, you used to always emphasize ingredients, quality of ingredients, sustainability, and all of these. Anything to comment in terms of what we are seeing now with COVID interrupting supply chains and so on? Anything that you want to share?
Yes, it's becoming more and more important that we use locally sourced food items. I think rather than bringing food in from far away where it suffers in the transport, and we need to support our local suppliers, our local growers, more so than ever, especially now with that COVID. I think it's important that we trade locally, and almost all countries can do that. If you're in Dubai, well, of course you have to import food, but if you're in a place like Sri Lanka, you have all the food just about that you need. In Australia, anywhere in Europe, it's crazy to bring in foods from Africa and from all around the world when it's not necessary. What really upsets me, and at the moment is, you may have heard, there's an African swine fever outbreak in Europe. They have found this wild boar on the German-Polish border in the woods, and they carried the fever. Now all this, the pork industry in Europe is gone. Yeah, it doesn't exist. So we have to be very careful where we source our food from. But to me, it's the more locally it's sourced, the better, the fresher, the tastier, and it supports our local people. And that to me is very, very important. And the quality of it is important. Quality interprets in nutritional value. A fresh vegetable is highly nutritious. If it's 4 to 5 days old, the nutritional value lessens in the food. So the fresher it is, the fresher we source it and give it to our customers, the better it is. And they will taste and will feel the difference that it is freshly sourced. No different to what you do in Sri Lanka with tea. So freshness is vital.
But going back to chefs, I've had the honor of working with chefs in different capacities over the years, and what you always see is that you're a unique band of brothers and sisters. What binds a chef to others in their vocation?
Possibly something not very complimentary, being crazy, being different. And we want to be different. We don't like to work in the office from 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So that to us is boring. We like the challenges. We like the ups and downs, the excitement, the frustration. All these things keep us going and bind us together. As long as we, especially in times now, we communicate with each other, and we do. We have when we meet each other, judging around the world, we meet other cooks and chefs. We discuss our problems, our good times, and it's enormous brotherhood. It's somebody who is not in the field finds it hard to understand. We are a crazy bunch of people with enormous amount of passion for what we do, passion for food, passion for our satisfied customers, passion for an argument with a customer if need be. We don't want to mention our colleague's name, but this is all what it's all about. You know, it's exciting. Every service is different. It's never boring. And yeah, well, that keeps me after 60 years still involved. Just talking to you about it now, I'm getting goosebumps. You would not believe it. I'm getting goosebumps. Just thinking about the passion, the involvement, the brotherhood, you know, we are opposition to each other in restaurants. And I remember when we had a shortage of this or that, or we had a gas strike on here in Melbourne, then they said it to each other, well, I can lend you this equipment, I can lend you that. We ring each other up. Have you got 10 dozen oysters to spare? Yeah, opposition restaurant, opposition hotels. And we stick together through thick and thin when the need arises. We opposition any other time, but we we are a great brotherhood. By the way, I love your tea you're holding. Well done.
Thank you, Bernd. Thank you. And you know, this is probably precisely the moment that I can share this with you, because it's as much a compliment as a question. You are significantly the inspiration behind the Empower Culinary and Hospitality School project. Over many years of sitting next to you at these judging events, you shared similar details that talking about discipline, talking about commitment, passion, all of those points that you've shared. Now that eventually stirred us to action, to want to share those same philosophy and those ingredients of success with chefs in Sri Lanka, and thus was born one Empower Culinary and Hospitality School in Moratoa, which you inaugurated, and since a second, which unfortunately you have not been able to come to yet, but will surely happen in the coming months or weeks. So as part of the training, we have now graduated 174 young women and men, including several who are differently able with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, or different conditions. And of course, all who are economically impoverished. So some have ended up overseas in fantastic jobs. Some, well, we have a Bocuse d'Or gold medalist. Yeah, you know about them. We have many of achievement, and it was that made the difference. And it is that learning, and it is that inspiration that you provided that we have integrated into that curriculum. So we also have 6 Bernd Uber Governors Award winners. Now we currently have 2 batches that are awaiting their results, and we have 2 batches that are waiting in the wings. And as they wait for the chef whites, they start, as you know, and again, because of your inspiration, they start by digging the soil at our Dilmah Conservation Sustainable Agricultural Farm. They have to grow food, and so that they will understand one of the principles that you shared with me and shared with our audience a moment ago. But as we await these 2 new batches coming in, what is your advice, Bernd? What would you tell them based on your experience?
Well, what do you do with the incoming students to as you mentioned, to show them where the food comes from, and what hard labor must go in to plant that seed before you can harvest and use the commodities, to respect for the food that they will develop, then that it becomes a very precious item rather than just a food commodity. Apart from that, I think the opportunity that the students have, and I mentioned it to them when I was fortunate enough to address them on a few occasions, to make use of that opportunity that they have been picked and been chosen to do the course, to have that chance in life to grow and again enrich the country with the knowledge that they gain there. And what I always tell people, I said, use your instructors. My comment is, suck them dry of knowledge. Ask them questions. Ask them to show you things, and quite often they will not be able to answer that question, of course, because they don't know it all. I don't know it all after 60 years in the industry, because when you know it all, well, where do you go from there? It becomes, your life becomes useless. But they can find out. You inspire them to research more, and that's an interaction between the trainee and the instructor, the teacher. Challenge them and ask them things that they may not know. If you read something in the paper or you see something on television, ask them these questions to follow it up for you, give you information on that, because it keeps them stimulated as much as you and your colleagues, then being a student, will learn from that experience. So open your mouth, ask, question. Don't ask and question certain things. Don't just take it all for granted, and challenge people who train you to make you the better person in the future, and to keep them honest as well. Let them earn their money.
Bernd used to always tell me that you will never stop learning. You will always You used to put it probably a little crudely that until you are on
Marble slab.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That takes a lot of humility. Tell me.
Yes, but when you stop learning, or when you prepare to stop learning, you give up. You surrender. And what I've learned 60 years ago was fantastic. But how has the world changed? How has the food trend changed? If I would cook the food I cooked 60 years ago, it's still good food, nutritious, but the presentation has changed. The ingredients have been expanded. I mean, in those days we only used local ingredients. Now we use ingredients from everywhere. The menus have expanded. We have fusion cuisine or confusion cuisine, whichever way you like to put it. But that makes it interesting and challenging. And most of these things work when we mix cultures. We have interrace marriages. And they're exciting. That's really great. Have to look at the offspring. They're beautiful human beings that come out of that. And the same with food, mixing Asian with European, with Sri Lankan, with Indian, or whatever. The results can be very, very exciting, very challenging. And I still have to learn all that. If I couldn't do any international judging if I would be just sitting on what I've learned 60 years ago. Things are changing. Our industry is evolving. It's alive. It's challenging us to keep up. Otherwise, you push to the side and your old hat. Now, as you said, until I'm on that marble slab, I will keep learning, and I'll be the passionate old cook that and make a nuisance of myself. Not a problem, but I'm here to stay until then, whenever it comes.
Bernd, there was something that you used to always talk to me about, which stuck in my mind, and it was about the importance of seasonal ingredients and seasonal menus. May I ask your advice on that?
They very much have disappeared, I think, the seasonal, because we can get it from anywhere at any time of the year. I remember even in the 60s, people wanted strawberries on the menu in winter, and we had to bring them down from Queensland, so it was still within our own country. But I said, what for? What enjoy the seasons, enjoy when things are at their best and sourced locally, rather than bringing it from the other side of the world. We have grapes in the shop at the moment from the Northern Hemisphere, from the United States. And I think, no, it's not necessary. I like to wait for the grapes when they come in season here. And the same is with the cherry season, which comes in November, December. We have cherry season here. Now, that's beautiful. It's a short season, but it's very special because it's seasonal. If I could get them all year round, boring, absolutely boring. And again, it should be locally sourced. And it's the excitement. Certain flowers bloom once a year. I've got in the garden now all these beautiful ranunculus and tulips flowering. Now, I don't want to have tulips in the opposite season. They are in season now, and the garden is beautiful with those flowers. So it's a period of 4 or 5 weeks a year they flower for me or for us here, and it is beautiful. It really puts a smile in my heart and on my face when I see that. And the same is for food. We use the season. It keeps the chefs challenged by changing their menu to a seasonal menu. And a lot of the good restaurants here, again, when they're allowed to open again, hopefully by October, November, or December, at the moment everything is shut, they will make a special feature on their menu by working seasonal and local. And these are the restaurants that people appreciate more and more. We don't need food off season from another continent. So to me, it's very vital, and it's a challenge to the cook, to the chef, and a good selling point, of course, extremely good selling point.
So Bernd, we're looking forward to having you back in Sri Lanka. There's much more work to be done for tea inspiration for the 21st century and beyond. You have inspired many people, and that 174 will become almost 250 in the next 12 months. And so I think you have much to be proud of. So Bernd, with appreciation for spending the last 30 minutes, I think we are all enriched by some of the advice that you have shared. And I want to tell you, you're a legend, because passion commitment, humility are a rare combination, but you can see that they are the ingredients of success. And I hope our young chefs will take that to heart. But thank you for your time, Bernd.
No, it's been my pleasure as always, Dilhan, and I really hope that I have one more opportunity to come to Sri Lanka, because we won't be traveling until possibly middle of next year if we're lucky. But I'd love to see the schools again, and especially the new one on the East Coast. I haven't seen yet, and I'd like to meet the students there and form a bond with them, because it's from one old cook to the new generation, the very new generation, and I would feel very privileged and honored. And I love meeting them. They are my lifeline. They keep me going, and it's like an injection, a drug for me to meet these young people with their great inspirations and hope.
We'll be bringing them all together in an alumni event, Bernd, and looking forward to that. Thank you, Bernd, for spending this time with us.